Hello, my name is Andrew, and today we're doing a review of the Wildling TANUKI YORU. So these are extremely light barefoot casual shoe. They're actually made out of paper, which is crazy. They're made out of washi paper, which is an ancient Japanese technique that goes back 1,000 years. So they're extremely light, very breathable. They dry quickly as well because the material is so thin. They have a medium wide toe box, but Wildling's a little more squared off at front, which gives it a little bit extra room. But I've never had a washi shoe before, and I've been wanting to try one of the TANUKI series for a while now, but it's kind of crazy because you can actually see right through there. Let's see if I can get the light to shine on it. Oh yeah, right there. Like you can see, almost see my face through the shoe. And it was crazy like going out for a walk in these because the breathability is so good, so much better than any barefoot shoe I've tried, that it was like wearing a sandal. It was almost like bizarre because it was like, how is so much air moving through a closed-toed shoe like this? But anyways, you've got a pull tab on the back, which is nice, and soft heel lining here, curves in just a little bit to hold your heel in place. And it's also a stitched sole, which I love. My original Wildlings had the same sole, but they weren't stitched. They're just glued, so anytime brands do that, it always is going to improve the durability. I thought they felt pretty nice to wear barefoot. There's a little bit of scratchiness because there's 25% polyester in there just for a little bit of extra durability, but the footbed felt nice and smooth, and Wildling also gives you a thin insole. I've never tried these before, but I think these are my favorite insoles for summer. But when you have a quilted design like this, it can add a little bit more temperature range because the individual panels here can either preserve a little bit of heat if you're wearing it on a bit cooler day, or help move some heat away from your feet if it's a little bit hotter. But in general, these are really flexible, so they just add a little bit of protection on the bottom of the shoe. You know, if you're someone who's a barefoot beginner, or maybe you're going on a little bit rougher terrain and you want some just tiny bit of padding. But back to the TANUKI, it's got a 3.5mm sole. This is the same one that I had in my very first pair of Wildlings. It's got this kind of like tabby split design, so the flexibility is really excellent. You don't have to put hardly any pressure on it to get the shoe to bend in any direction. And then they've taken off a lot of material here, so these are only like 184 grams, which is super, super light. Although because of the cutaway here, you're definitely gonna get some water in there if you step in a puddle, but these are summer shoes and they're meant to dry quickly rather than be waterproof. Although they do have a mid layer here just for a little bit of resistance. And in terms of grip, it's not the most tacky rubber that I've tried from a barefoot shoe, but Wildling is mostly a casual brand, so you can actually, you know, go running in these. I would just be careful on like slick, smooth surfaces. If you do want something with more water resistance, this is the Vivobarefoot Gobi Sneaker Premium Canvas Edition from Vivobarefoot. And it's got a little bit wider toe box than Wildling. I would say this is actually borderline extra wide. There's some faux leather on the edging. Looks very convincing actually, but they do have a leather version of the sneaker as well. And I believe both of them are 95% natural materials, which is awesome. But it does have a little bit more structure and weight compared to the Wildling TANUKI, although like I said, you have more water resistance here because the sole wraps up so high. It's also stitched as well. Then in terms of the sole, it's 3.7mm, so very similar to Wildling. Wildling is a little bit more flexible because they've got that cutaway here, but the Vivo rubber is just a little bit more tacky and I think slightly more durable because Vivo is just a little more oriented towards performance casual. But this is also one of my favorite barefoot soles because the flex is really good and it just feels natural. There's no stiff parts anywhere in the shoe. Another good vegan option is the Ahinsa Vida. This one has a hemp upper. It's got a extra wide toe box. There's a lot of room up there for toe splay. Kind of halfway in between Wildling and Vivobarefoot in terms of having a little bit of structure, but not as much as the Gobi sneaker. And then the sole is 4mm, so still pretty similar, but this is the thickest out of the three. It does have just a little bit more protection for going on maybe some light gravel and stuff like that. And there's slightly more grip on wet terrain just because the lugs open up. However, it is not a stitched sole like the others. For a higher cut option, this is the Mukishoes Duna. Also has a hemp upper. It's undyed, which is really cool. Has a wide toe box, but then because the rubber is so thin and bendable, it basically ends up being an extra wide shoe. There's a lot of room up top, so if you're someone with high volume arches, this is going to work really well. It's very thin, so similar to Wildling, feels great inside the shoe. It's all natural materials, there's no dyes or anything. Plus it's a stitched sole and it's 3.5mm like Wildling, so really flexible. And Mukishoes also has one of those grippy barefoot rubbers I've tried, as well as these rounded lugs, which are actually kind of nice for going on pavement because it's very rough. And so they actually resist wear quite well because there are no sharp edges that can easily get ground down. Finally, if you want something a little bit sporty, this is the Vivobarefoot Flow. Honestly, it kind of feels like the Wildling Tanuki because it's got this very thin upper. And again, if you look inside the shoe, you can see lots of perforation and the wind comes in through really well. It's got some minimal toe protection up front as well. These things are paper light, although they're not actually paper like the Tanuki. But in terms of the sole, it's 4 millimeters overall. And you can see that there's a lot of snappiness to it. Like when I bend it like this, it's almost like a rubber band. So this is an excellent shoe for sprinting. It's got a thinner outsole with the rubber than Vivobarefoot usually does, but then there's a layer of foam in there. So again, it's great for sprinting if you just want just a little bit of padding for coming down hard on a track, or if you're out doing tempo runs, something like that. On the outside here, you've got a slightly softer rubber, and then on the inside, it's a little bit harder for more abrasion resistance, because usually when you're coming down, that's where you're gonna get the most wear. But yeah, in terms of overall weight, feels very similar to the Tanuki. All right, so that's my first impression of the Wildling Tanuki Yoru, but I'll let you guys know how it goes in the long-term review. And in the meantime, if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below. Browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website, barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Wildling Tanuki or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.